Welcome to Seizing Valor, where we discover God's path for manhood one conversation at a time. I'm Zach.
I'm Joe.
I'm Josh.
And I'm back.
Yeah, where were you?
I was, oh my gosh, it's busy past few weeks.
Zach, we literally haven't moved at all since Josh and I last spoke.
Thank you for waiting. 2 towers.
Yeah, which is book 2.
Book 2. Book 2, movie 2,
Of
however you are indulging.
Episode 2 of 3.
Episode 2.
Change that DVD if anybody still watches those, and
Guilty.
or
I do.
change the selection on, that be on Prime now? I don't know. I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wherever you find your
Netflix.
Wherever you find your digital LOTR.
I hope and I pray that you guys have watched our first episode of the Fellowship of the Ring and what it means to be healthy. A healthy man, healthily masculine. So please go check that out.
Yeah.
It is my favorite.
Mhm.
Like there's not everything pales in comparison to Lord of the
Mhm.
Rings, in my
Mhm.
opinion. I love it. I think it's just perfect.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I will preface this, if you want to be the greatest man that you could be, Tolkien was a Catholic. You should copy yourself like on the ultimate good, which he knew was Christ. So for anybody listening, acknowledge, like, even if you're not Christian, acknowledge that Christianity, it animated our whole Western society. We live in a society. If you value Western society, you have to grant that our society was, because there's a lot of changes going on in our culture for worse, was modeled after Christianity, and they copied Christ. Christ embodies all the best aspects of what men should be, and Tolkien knew that and modeled his characters after that.
Where does the Two Towers begin? We're
talking about the movies here.
It
people,
begins.
just as a
It begins
reminder.
with
the.
Yeah. Then 2.
So what they do in the movie is they actually start with the death of Gandalf. We go backwards and we start with the death of Gandalf. Kind of as a reminder, because it's going to be really important later, what happened to Gandalf, but we kind of get to see.
Why do you say that?
What?
Why do you say that?
So Gandalf, real quick. So in the lore
Mhm.
aspect of it. So wizards are like God becoming man. So
Mhm.
Gandalf is supposed to literally is like the Christ
Yes.
because of
Yeah.
who he is. And so when times are requiring of it, God becomes flesh in a wizard. And so Gandalf is like Christ.
He's a
literally.
Maiar.
He become Istar
Mhm.
in the real world. So he's
Mhm.
kind of almost like an angelic figure that takes on flesh in order to assist the mortal creatures in the fight against Sauron.
Mhm.
So he so essentially, he gives his life so that he can defeat the Balrog. That prior to Gandalf's sacrifice, so when he was Gandalf the Grey, he was very much more of a passive force.
Mhm.
He kind of went like the long way around for a lot of stuff. He was kind of not using other people, but he was like more about like taking the slow way, or like helping, like forming groups so that they could do something like that type of thing. Like he was taking like the long game approach and really wasn't confronting Sauron or any of the evil like directly. But then as soon as he comes back as Gandalf the White, he's like immediately like doing things to like directly fight against the forces of Mordor. He like going to Rohan, going to Gondor, like just like going to like get things stirred up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the Fellowship of the Ring, we actually learn in the book that it's a period of about 17 years when he sees Frodo again. So if you want to talk about playing the long game, it's from when he goes back to the Shire, it had passed 17 years had passed, give or take.
Well, and if you want to even then go back to the fact of like from when he was first sent
Yeah.
to like the mortal realm to combat Sauron, and then when this like all this starts taking place, it's like thousands of years, like hundreds
Yeah.
to thousands of years.
I never really thought about that, like him taking a little bit more of an active role. It's really cool.
What he was afraid of is kind of hinted at in the first movie, this idea he doesn't want to become like Sauron. Like he doesn't want to be corrupted, and that's why he's afraid. Like he doesn't want to be corrupted by that evil force. So they pose the idea. Now this isn't necessarily true or what Tolkien intended, but they pose the idea of like, so he took like this really long hunt, like centuries long, like roundabout way of going about things that wasn't necessarily bad because he was setting a lot of the stuff pieces in place.
Mm-hmm.
But it's possible then that like after this incident, and he like died and he was sent back. Like this idea is when he was sent back, they kind of gave him a little extra push, being like, all right, you got to stop avoiding, and you got to start acting, like you got to start going, which once again is not necessarily true. This is all conjecture and like the way people analyze, and you can take it. But I think that's even a manly lesson a little bit in the end, is this idea of like facing our fears, of not beating around the bush or waiting for our problems to go away, or trying to hide from our problems, or have other people encounter them for us, like that type of thing. I think that's a lesson for masculinity, of this idea is that you need to not necessarily face your problems alone, because Gandalf doesn't do that. Like when he comes back, he still cooperates with people, and encourages and inspires them. But this idea of like, you need to take initiative, like you need to not run away, like you need to stand strong.
Right. It is a lesson in diligence. Yeah, it's a lesson in diligence, and for him personally, he's a lot more strict in number 2 and 3 movies. I've noticed. Let's talk about another character that's introduced in this book/film, is Eomer. And he definite example of a manly man's man. He puts so much on the line for his family, his people, and particularly his uncle. And it's a particularly dark time for the kingdom of Rohan, for example. He's the nephew of the king, where he stands up to his uncle, who is clearly being manipulated, and he can't exactly pinpoint why, but it has something to do with Saruman, the evil white wizard who's been corrupted by Sauron. And he stands up to his uncle who's being manipulated, even if that means that he was banished from the kingdom of Rohan.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's still obedient to like the command. Like he doesn't necessarily try to rebel. He doesn't necessarily try to cause discord. He's obedient. Like he's the obedient son. He's not the son. He's the nephew. But like he's still the obedient one. He does what needs to be done, and he doesn't necessarily run away because like out of like, screw that, like I'm out of here.
Right.
He's ordered to be exiled. So like he's obedient when he's told to leave, and then he's obedient when he's told to come back.
Right. And he takes the Rohirrim with him as if like he's still like a member of that kingdom.
Yeah, those who remain loyal to the king. Yeah, I would say like his character trait is like loyalty. Like he is like loyalty embodied. Because he truly is. Like he was there in the beginning before Theoden was corrupted, and then he remains steadfast in that. Like he can't be swayed by the evil forces, and he remains loyal to the end.
Yeah, and then is willing at the first mention of the need for him, like he comes to Helm's Deep, like
right back.
Comes right back. And it's interesting.
And saves the day with Gandalf.
Yeah. So this idea is, you're right, like the loyalty of like he does what needs to be done at the moment, even if that's walking away at the beginning. But he's like not searching for power. Like so, like if he was just searching for power, he could have just tried to overthrow Theoden.
Right.
But he didn't. He's like, I will be loyal to the king, and I will wait for the time that it's time for me to return. Like for the kingdom to be reestablished. It won't be by my hand, but like I guess, but I will wait. And how many of us have been in that spot where we're like, we feel like we need to fix something, but in the end, it has to be someone else, and we have to step back and we have to remove ourselves from the situation, just accept the fact that we won't be the ones to fix it. Or like the conversion of a friend or something like that, or someone has fallen away, like that you're close to, and like you keep trying to be the one, but sometimes you just have to step away, and then someone else kind of comes in and does it. So in this case, when Gandalf steps in and
and that's grace. That's the will of the Father. Which that will be done.
So since we're on it, do we want to talk about Theoden?
I would love
to. Also
he goes through an incredible amount of hardship because it's not put into the movie, but his wife passes away, and then it's what's shown in the movie is that his son Theoden passes away in an orc battle, and it's a long and slow dragged out death in itself too. And he says no parent should have to bury their child, and he breaks down.
So and it's actually the worm tongue sneaks in and kills him.
Okay.
So that's what's hinted at, and they even talk. It's like a passing line in the movie. He's like, well, he was fine, like he was doing okay, like he was obviously had some injuries because of battle, but then it's learned that Wormtongue killed him during the night.
This idea was Theoden's corruption occurring prior to that, or I mean, I would think so, because it's like it was a gradual thing.
Because Grimo was still there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it took a long time.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was like slowly descending. Like this, like dark. Like, he explains it like a dark cloud that's like slowly going over Merhan. As Saruman like gets more and more grasp on him and on the country.
And for those who don't know, his mind being corrupted and enslaved and controlled, just not being him, like
it was like
essentially being possessed. Yeah. Like, and now most of us won't encounter that in our lives like that. I mean, we all face being controlled or manipulated by sin in one form or another. Before, in ways that are sometimes gradual, like everything always starts out small, and before you know it, it's a big deal.
It overtakes you.
Yeah.
But in the
and then Gandalf comes and exercises.
Yeah,
exercises the demon.
Another interesting thing pointed out about Gandalf, kind of in this scene, or just about what happens. So I remember listening to, I was described a talk. My mother went to this talk and then described it to me. So Heather Kim gave a talk kind of about this scene, the scene in which Gandalf exorcises Saruman out of Theoden. That all during this time, so like Wormtongue is speaking lies like into essentially Theoden's ear. So he's telling him, or at least like truths that are distorted and twisted, and trying to keep his mind. So he's like always whispering in the ear. So what Gandalf does is he speaks truth to him. Like that's how he's at first like trying to get through to Theoden. He speaks truth. Like he speaks truth out loud towards Theoden to kind of get him to remember who he is and what's going on. And more importantly, like stressing on who he is, like who you are. You are the king. Like you are Theoden. Like this is not you. And that's kind of the basis of exercising Saruman out of Theoden. And this idea, what they wanted to get at, Heather Kim was trying to get at, is this is what we need to do in our lives. We need to speak truth. So when the evil one whispers in our ear, we need to speak truth in order to dispel that. So like Jesus, when he was tempted in the desert, same thing. So the devil tries to tempt him. He speaks truth from Scripture. One does not live on bread alone. He's like, you shall worship the Lord your God alone. So that's speaking truth and speaking it out loud, like, is important. Especially if you can quote Scripture. If you can find truth in Scripture to combat what you're dealing with, that's even better. But speaking truth, who you are, like what God says, like, whatever lies are being told, you speak the truth. Yeah. And that's, that helps,
and the enemy can't do anything about it.
Yeah. So this idea of, truth, like, and the importance of that. So like when you're a man, when you feel like you're being told, whether it's through temptation or even just your own lack of self-confidence or something, of like you're no good, like you're not a man, like you're pathetic, like any of those types of things, or you're a sinner, you're unredeemable, you need to like speak the truth of like that you are a son of God, like you are a man modeled in his image. That's how, like, say those things to yourself, say them out loud to like dispel those types of thoughts, or those types of temptations. So truth, it's important,
because the word has the word has so much power. Like it really does. Like we really have such an incredible capacity to create and to destroy with words. And that really does image the Father. Like we talk about creation, especially John chapter 1, talking about the word and all that. And then of course just with Genesis, like how the Lord made everything, he spoke everything into existence. And so we image that in our own ability, in our own in our words, we can create or destroy, and of course ourselves and others. And so that's why it's so important for us to speak life and to speak positivity and to say truth and to uplift and to, because the more that we are negative and the more that we proclaim literally out loud, we say these negative words, like we're kind of creating that existence. Like we're forming that reality based on our words. And of course, it influences our way of thinking. I mean, even just on a neurological level, like our brain literally will make these things come true. There's a lot of power in our belief and in our words. So take that to heart. It's very important to speak truth, to speak life, to be positive, to try to bring, I like to like speak life. Like it's
Yeah.
important for us to do that.
Yeah. But especially in today's world that seems to think that, truth is relative.
Yeah.
A relative truth has no freeing power, like an objective truth does, because it is the truth.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about this in a reflection recently. This idea of like there's like a certain thinking trap. I don't remember what it's called right now. It was where you believe like whatever you feel is true. And that's actually like a thinking trap. So like just because you feel it doesn't mean it's true. So you have to like look for the objective evidence in order to dispel that. And so that's the same thing as speaking truth. This idea is you need to be rooted in what is objective, what is true, in order, because if you're not, then like anything could be true. And so even the bad stuff can be true. Like that's the thing. If you don't stand firm in a rock of truth, then there's no real freedom. Like there's no real salvation. There's no real way out, I guess, because how do you dispel the bad thoughts if like truth is relative, and therefore relatively speaking the bad could be true? Like
and that's such, relativism is so awful in that sense of it just destroys everything. And even just that like psychological term, that cognitive dissonance that's created because of it, it's like you're living a reality that like your heart disagrees with, or your mind thinks is, it just creates like this,
and it's
like
only
broken.
and we now know why people in Western society are so unhappy.
It just causes brokenness within you, and everything becomes disordered and disproportionate, and we're seeing it on full display today. And that's why it's so important for us to remember objective truth, and to seek it out with everything, and to live our lives in accord with that truth. Because when we're living a different way, it creates that dissonance within us, and like it causes all these issues and problems to well up, and the guilt and shame and darkness to kind of to fill in.
And that's your true bondage. You're not actually free with relativism.
Not at all. You are in chains.
So where are we going next? We got a lot of characters that are introduced in the Two Towers. So where should we jump? We'll stick mostly to the male ones since we're speaking.
Yeah. I think the Two Towers, I feel like Gandalf is like, he's the one. Like I feel like, Frodo is like a fellowship, and in Two Towers it's like it's all about Gandalf and his importance and his role and everything. And then, obviously Return of the King is more Aragorn and Frodo and Sam. But so I think it's safe to say.
Let me throw you for a whirlwind. Let's talk about Faramir.
Sure.
Faramir. Okay. Considering you guys apparently didn't talk about Boromir.
I know. I was like face palming afterwards. I was like, oh, we should have talked about his sacrifice.
I know, man.
So Faramir, what does he do in the Two Towers?
Do you want to? He faces a tough choice.
To show his quality.
Show his quality. Man, I hate that word now.
What is his quality?
Which, unless you see the extended editions, you don't realize how distasteful that phrase is.
He's he's the younger brother of Boromir, and Boromir, of course, was one of the Fellowship of the Ring, who basically gave his life after being tempted and kind of fallen to that and trying to take the ring, and was that like weak link and that Galadriel was warning Frodo about. And so he fell for that, and he was ashamed, and he felt the pain of that decision after kind of coming to his senses after being tempted to take the ring from Frodo.
Right.
That he then wanted to show his heart, and he laid down his life, and he saved Merry and Pippin.
And that side of Boromir was never really shown to the rest of his family. Interestingly enough, there was a good view as the younger brother Faramir saw of his older brother.
That like agape existence of literally laying down your life. Obviously, he was this war hero and this general and commander, and he's this fantastic in that sense, like very masculine alpha presence. But the fact of laying himself down literally to death for hobbits who are like bottom rung of the world, it just showed like his true nature within that moment.
And that refusal to be defined by giving into the temptation of the ring, like this idea that there is salvation, there is redemption, and I mean the ultimate redemption is through self-sacrifice. there's no greater love than this, than laying down one's life for one's friends. And that erases even the most egregious of sins in a lot of ways, like, and that it's showing that fall to temptation was not like the real Boromir, like the real Boromir, as like we might think as sinful people, it's like that's the real me, but he showed his, as you said, his true character at the end.
Yeah. And so then we meet Faramir, who again is the younger of the brothers, and who is not as loved or appreciated by their father,
which we'll soon see.
Yeah, but who is the steward of Gondor?
Yeah,
Denethor, who's leading instead because there's no king at the throne. And so what does he do? He comes in and finds Frodo and Sam and Gollum.
And that's the One Ring.
Yeah, journeying towards it. And then he has a decision to make once he learns that the One Ring is on Frodo's neck.
And so in a lot of ways, he's given the same decision his brother was given.
Exactly. Yep.
And he's put through the same test. And I guess also for background, we have to put it what we kind of talked about, like the relationship between the two. I mean, he's not the favored son. Not in a way that's like jealous of Boromir. Like this idea is he has a good relationship with his brother, but like their father, so Denethor, just always is like wishing that Faramir was essentially his brother, like, was better. It was like more like criticizing everything he does, essentially saying it's not as good as Boromir, yada, 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 yada. So that's the woundedness that comes in when Faramir has to make this choice. So like Boromir's woundedness when he's given the choice with the ring is more of, I have all this expectation on me because I'm the favorite son. Like I'm literally like the hope of Gondor, essentially, because we have no king, and I'm the heir, I'm like the general, like I'm all this stuff. Like I have the hope of mankind on my shoulders.
Right.
And so it's like kind of pride, but also like the pressure of, so that's like the tension that he's under when he's tempted with the ring. And so that's like kind of his thought process is like, I will take the ring so that I can help man, even though that's good intention, but bad in practice.
Yes.
So Faramir's is more like, I want my father's love.
To love me, yeah.
Yeah. I want to prove I'm worth something. And if I don't, like my father, it will only confirm in my father's eyes that I'm no good. So that's kind of the decision. That's like, they have different reasons for being tempted. Though similarities in having terrible parentage. The woundedness and like the fatherly relationship. Because Boromir, it's like revealed that Boromir doesn't necessarily approve of the fact that his brother is not treated well by their father, but he's still the obedient son and everything like that. So he doesn't do that much about it. But
right.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the fact too that like where Gondor's position is, so it's very close to Mordor, so it's like constantly under siege and under attack. That kind of triggers that sense of Boromir, like I'm going to save my city, so I'm going to use this ring to like save the city. And that also kind of shows his intention behind all of that too, just kind of as an aside.
Yeah.
But like sure, it's using it for what it's not intended, because obviously the ring is meant for destruction. But he's convinced that he can save his city that's always under siege.
Well, for both, it's just a testament to the fact that sin is always a twisting of something good.
Exactly.
We've talked about that with like the 7 deadly sins. Like sin is always a twist of something good. So both of them have good intentions. Wanting love and wanting to protect your people are both good desires, but they've been twisted and made desperate almost, like in the face of the ring. So, and it makes them do awful things.
For the sake of a good decision. For the sake of a good intention. So he wants to, at the very end of the movie, sell out Frodo and Sam to his father.
To show his worth and to try to receive that love again. Disregard for their lives.
But
rises above.
But rises above.
Decides not to. Decides not to. So, after seeing their true colors and understanding like why they're doing this and the nature of the ring and the fact that he finally believes that it has to be destroyed. And so then he relents and decides to set them free.
and really see, as you said, kind of seeing the real burden that the ring is for like Frodo, that it's not this source of power, that it
It's
really
not a good
is.
thing. It doesn't make people strong, and it ruins them.
Yeah. So,
Comes
I mean,
innocence.
speaking of Faramir, and as well as the, Sam and Frodo and Gollum, this is a really big, important movie because Gollum, it becomes a more important character. He joins our duo, so that they are now a trio. And even though he's super important, we kind of get more backstory in like the Return of the King. I mean, like Gollum is like a really his struggle is the centerpiece, or one of the centerpieces of this movie, is Gollum's start, his struggle, and then his reversion later on. So maybe we should talk about that, or I guess we should be talking about Smeagol and Gollum, because they're kind of two different sides of this being. Kind of representing like our desire to do good, but then also like the evil that's tempting us on the inside.
Yeah, so it really is like that, like innocence, and then like the destruction of innocence, of like the evil and whatever the opposite of innocence is. I can't think of right now. Depravity, I guess. Depravity.
Yeah.
And so so Smeagol is like that, the being who's pure, the innocent hobbit or river folk from years past, who's trying to hold on and maintain that. And then he's getting that Gollum personality, which is really just like embodying the nature of the ring through his, his possession of it for 500 years. This causes like the split second personality, which represents basically what the ring is, which is depravity and evil and hatred and destruction, as you see tempt him to try to kill the
two hobbits,
Sam and Frodo, who he's leading, who obviously possesses the ring now. So we see that like internal struggle about halfway through the movie, where he's like, no, like I want to serve them, like I want to love them, I want to take care of them, I want to guide my master. And so he sends him away. He says, Gollum, like get away from me, like don't come back, leave now and never come back. So for a time he does, and he's kind of back, like he's this innocent, being who's just doing his thing and wants to serve and love until soon,
until stinking Faramir.
And when Faramir comes, and
I don't know about you guys, but every time that scene comes up, I'm like, dude, come on! Like, if only you hadn't been such a jerk, like maybe Gollum would have been okay.
But how true is that to like the reality of human existence, right? Where like you have this moment where like conversion happens and life is good. You get that high of like, okay, I'm gonna change. Things are much better now. But then life hits you. You encounter somebody who strikes you down, somebody who hurts you. Yeah. You fall into that temptation. You out of the blue sometimes, and then you're back in it again. And that's just such an incredible representation of that human experience that we all kind of endure. We tell ourselves, okay, I'm going to be better. I'm going to cast out all this stuff. I'm going to live for what's good. And then the next day you get stuck in traffic, someone cuts you off and you're pissed off, and then you start swearing, and it snowballs. But yeah.
And then the enemy kind of sneaks in, which is exactly what the Gollum persona sneaks in.
And what's incredible about that scene? What's incredible about that scene? So basically, what happens is Gollum is betrayed by. Well, he thinks he's betrayed by
misunderstanding.
Frodo. Yeah. And so what happens is he's comforted, right? So he's in that moment where he's kind of being in torment by by Faramir, trying to get information out of him, and it's not tortured, but like whatever. And so, but as soon as he comes back, that voice, he's comforting him. He's like, it's okay. Like, calm down, Smeagol. Like, I'm here. We shouldn't have trusted him to begin with. So it's like literally like that voice of evil, like, and just the fact that it comes in and comforts him, like, oh, like, like how many times is there that comforting voice that you think is telling you truth or whispering, comfort to you, when in reality it's not. Like,
yeah. Or how many times do we seek after our sins, our habitual sins, in those moments when we're low, we're struck down, when we need comfort?
Right.
How many of us go to pornography or alcohol or overindulgence in food or buying things? Like, we fall into those traps because that's our soothing voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
And it's a testament also to the fact that like Smeagol's, like well, obviously I'm like, oh yeah, if only that moment had never happened, like it would be fine. But that's not necessarily true, because the moment was a testament to the fact that the root, like the foundation of Smeagol's transformation, was not strong. Like it was very fragile, and like anything that would have gone wrong probably would have, well, at least maybe if they would have given more time, maybe not, but like more than likely anything that would have gone wrong like would have shook that foundation. And I guess it's also like we also need to see things for us as Faramir. Like this idea is that you never know who you're dealing with and the effect that things can have on people or what state of mind that they're in. And that you could be that person, like being a jerk or sinning against someone or doing something terrible to someone, like can really have a big negative impact. You know, like
cause people to spiral.
Exactly. Like you don't know what you could cause in another person. So you have to be very respectful of that you are dealing with another living human being, like a child of God. Like, and in that moment, obviously you look at Gollum / Smeagol and like, he doesn't look like he's an equal. He looks very much like, he doesn't even really look human or hobbit or, you know, whatever he was. He looks very much lesser. And that's the way Faramir treats him. But this idea is that he really truly was like in this allegorical sense, like, you know, this child of God that, you know, needs to be treated respectfully because they also have their own things going on that you don't know what you're doing by doing, like treating them poorly. And there's that level of what if, you know, like, you know, this idea is that your sin could have a cataclysmic effect. Frodo might still have a finger if Faramir wouldn't have done it. Granted, he might not have, the ring might not have ended up in Mount Doom too, but like, you know, you get my point. There might have been struggles avoided had Faramir not done that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, treat people well.
Yeah.
On a lighter note, I think we should also mention the friendship between Legolas and Gimli.
That's kind of like highlights or blossoms, I suppose, in this scene or in this movie, because now we're all separated, so we kind of get like more relationships now because we're in groups instead of like 9 people all together. So it's but yeah, it's a healthy competitive rivalry. Right.
Yeah. As in them competing who gets the higher body count.
Yeah,
exactly. And then just for them to even grow into some kind of a friendship is a pretty cool thing, since, you know, in the beginning, like, it's known that there's kind of a rivalry, kind of a hatred-ism between, you know, races, between dwarves and elves, that they tend not to get along well, and they don't like each other. And just the fact that you kind of see them growing to get past what their preconceived notions are of who they are, to get to know the other, and then become good friends to the point where they're like, doing that, they're competitive within battles. I mean, it adds this kind of lightheartedness to a little bit of levity to the scenes, but it's just a testament of seeing through those, you know, the preconceived notions to love the other.
Yeah.
As I said, I think this, like, there's a lot of friendships that are highlighted, a lot of pairs that are highlighted. Well, pairs and trios, but like this idea is we have within the trio of, you know, of like Legolas or Gimli and Aragorn, we really get the friendship between Legolas and Gimli. And then we have this trio of Gollum and Frodo and Sam. And like, we're really highlighting now the friendship between Frodo and Sam, you know, and what that looks like. And also the tensions that come in from like Gollum being inserted into the group. Right. We get Merry and Pippin as they're chilling with Treebeard and having to deal with that, which I don't know about you guys, but in some ways that seemed like the most frustrating of the missions that were given to everybody to deal with the Ents.
The waiting and the impatience you feel at not actually getting any progress.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we should talk about. Maybe we should talk about the Ents. Should we talk about the Ents and Treebeard?
There's so much to talk about. Oh my gosh.
There's so much in this movie. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 for the Twin Towers and a part 1 and 2 for the Return of the King.
Let's just make another podcast. We just talk about Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. All right, guys. Today we're going to talk about.
I mean, that exists already, but there's lots of like podcasts for just the lore and all that. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Every character.
Yeah, the world.
We're going to talk about the Uruk-hai leader from the end of the Fellowship of the Ring and his impact on the overall story.
Did you know that his
name
voice
is Lurtz? That's his name.
Yeah, Lurtz.
And he wasn't actually in the book.
Then why does he have a name if it wasn't in the book?
Peter Jackson.
I'm trying to remember what his like sound was. in the behind the scenes they talked about like the yell that he makes,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like the kind of the sounds that the Orcai make is like it's like a mixture between like a cow and like a camel or something like that with some like effects on it, I think. But it's kind of neat.
Who would have thought that that would be menacing?
Yeah,
A cow and a camel.
and it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So next time, everyone, you look at a cow, you see an orc, or half an orc, half an Urukai, technically.
Yeah.
So, but
Well, so I think basically to summarize this, so the ending, there's a huge battle at Helm's Deep, which is where the Rohirrim go to defend Saruman, who's encroaching and who desires to destroy all of mankind. And so the battle looks a little bleak. Like Saruman is kind of winning. He's defeating because the Rohirrim they don't have as many people. It's like 300 to
10,000.
10,000.
Yeah.
And so it's just like it doesn't look good. But then out of the blue, here comes Gandalf, who comes to save the day, bringing Eomer back, who's still loyal to the king, although he has been in exile and unaware of his exorcism. The fact that he's uncorrupted now. And then comes to save in that last moment. That literally the Deus ex machina,
Mhm.
Yeah.
to come to save the day.
Like you said he would. He prophesied.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But even that battle, like in Helm's Deep, this idea is it's like almost our own descent. So like Helm's Deep is like it's down, like it's down like it's down like in like kind of, I wouldn't say like a valley, maybe like a swampish area.
Yeah, swampish area. Yeah.
Yeah. So this idea is that's like almost like us in our low moments, like of our lives, and like when things seem bleak. So they're like barricading in Helm's Deep in the hopes that they will be saved. So they're like holding out in hopes that they'll be saved.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing in our life. Like in our lowest moments, sometimes that's what we got to do. We got to barricade, we got to fight, and we got to hold out until God comes. Like God's gonna send help, but we got to hold out until that point. So when Gandalf and comes and the riders of Rohan and they storm down from in that awesome scene down that hill, and or even with the elves showing up before the start of the battle, like the idea is that help will be sent, but you need to hold out. Like you need to stay strong. You need to trust. Like they needed to act in faith. They needed to fight back, trusting that God was going to help send reinforcements.
Yeah, and then even before that too, when they do, so after the elves come to help, but then when all is looking bleak and it looks bad and they're all stuck in the back room there, in the throne room, and what do? They come out on horses. They say like, ride out with me, like let's go, let's one last attempt at this. And so even to the very end, like they had that courage to be like, okay, let's fight to the very end,
Yeah. And how many of us need that in life?
Any person looking at it that like that's crazy. Like you've only got like a handful of people on horseback.
Why would you
like
do
how
that?
are you gonna
Certain
do it?
death. Yeah. Like what are you thinking? But to recognize that like that is an honorable end. Yeah. Instead of going out, like with your head, with your tail between your legs, to go out fighting strong. Like exactly like what you just said, Zach. Like how many people actually do that? Like in our own existence today. The fact that we have to recognize that there is a spiritual battle that we all kind of are enduring every single day of our lives, and how many times do we do that, or we fight, to the very, with all of that, with like reckless abandon, knowing that so something to be said about that.
Yeah, definitely. We live in a lot of world of fear, and so like, how many of us are really more concerned with prolonging our lives for those few more minutes or our comfort or whatever it might be, instead of riding out against that's what's encroaching on us. So many people struggling with anxiety, like crippling anxiety, that are just like, that you're staying in the keep. You're not riding out, you're just staying in the keep.
And then we can kind of even connect it further with like, and then Gandalf comes after they've done that. So instead of like kind of withdrawing and retreating, it's like now they made that decision that no, I'm going to fight back, and then here comes Gandalf, who comes to save. So it's like a recognition of like, okay, I'm going to take this, like we can do this, like I'm going to fight honorably. Here we go, and then the Lord sweeps in and kind of saves the day. Yeah. So I think there's something to be said about that. Like how it's a very important for us, even just to like what we're talking about with our attitude and how we speak. Like it's so important for us to not
To not
fall
bask in our
inward.
suffering. Yeah.
Exactly. To wallow and to fall apart, because that's right where Satan wants us to be. He wants us to be isolated. He wants us to be guilty and afraid and ashamed and sad and lonely. But when we go outward, when we fight against that, when we take that horse out to stomp on some Urkai head, we can the Lord seeks that and longs for that. It's like this receptivity that we're saying, like, no, I'm going to do this, and he can sweep in and save the day.
Mm.
And one last note for the last part of this story: don't take care of nature, or trees will come alive and destroy your house. So keep that in mind. Armies of trees. And also the fact, big thing with the Ents, they take a really long time to decide anything. This idea of, well, first Merry and Pippin have to learn to be patient in order with them, but at the same time with the Ents is like, there comes a time where you need to act. Like there's this, I think that's the big thing with the Ents, is that you can only talk about stuff for so long. Like you can only conjecture for so long. You can only decide what to do for so long, and eventually you need to act. And eventually they get to that point where they're like stirred into action. So I think
once they have that conviction, they're all in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just the recognition that they're a part of the world too.
Yeah.
And for when that scene where Mary says that, well, you're a part of this world.
Yeah.
Like the evil forces want to destroy everything, and guess what? You're a part of everything.
This is the movie where so many characters like step up and realize, their voice. Mary especially, Eomer we see, even Sam too, standing up to Faramir and actually telling like his brother's fate. Yeah.
And that's going to continue into the next movie with many characters. Pippin following close behind, Eowyn kind of coming into her own, even though this is a men's podcast. But we can still briefly mention that. But like,
I want to say also, I kind of want to go more into this a little bit later, but so to speak, Aragorn not falling prey to the typical love triangle thing that so many of our modern Hollywood movies go into. He sticks to his woman that he loves, even though like there are some advances from Eowyn. We eventually know that he sees her more as like a platonic friend, which it's not often.
Yeah, and I have to say that's one thing that I hate about the movies that is not in the books, is that there's not even a little bit of a hint of that occurring in the books, And so just the fact that they kind of do that to spice up kind of a romantic whatever. And even with stuff with Arwen, like that doesn't exist either in the books. It's just all about the story and all that. Not to say that women don't have their place, because they do. Everything with Eowyn and all that's all there, and it's incredible. And I think Tolkien does an incredible job of how he treats women, and but we can talk about that for a different day. But
and that he's way too old for her. She's like what, 20? He's like 150. So
I mean, she doesn't think so.
Age is just a number, right? Which, by the way, like if you never
relativism.
Watch the movies, some people might not even pick up on that. It's like one of the minor things is that like Aragorn is has extended longevity. Like he's not like a normal man, but I'm not sure if that's only in the extended editions or it's just not expanded upon it much in the.
Yeah, it really hasn't expanded much.
Yeah.
The Numenorian.
All right.
So tell me, what's it been like since I last spoke with you, Zach?
All right. Well, guess diving in. So it's been a good like 2 weeks since I've been here, and it's been very busy with work, busy with social stuff, busy with people, busy which is great. I mean, one of the things Exodus 90 has really helped me do is it's filled my free time with people and like stuff and like or not like stuff like physical stuff, but like doing stuff, mostly doing stuff with people, because it's like really kind of made me feel like I was telling people the other day. I was like, one thing you just kind of discover when you do this is like the only thing that's really worth filling your time with is God and other people,
right?
And that everything else is like it's okay, but it's really not the same. So I've been doing that. I've been trying to keep my weekends really busy and packed. I'm trying to find a calendar here so I can kind of like remember. Okay, so the last time I was here, say 2 weeks ago. Okay, so last weekend, so not this past weekend, but the weekend like before that, was my best buddy's birthday. My former roommate, he turned 30 so now we're both old. so what we did is we went to go see a professional soccer match because he's like a super big soccer fan. So we went to go see the Philadelphia Union in Philly. Well, kind of in Philly. It's in Chester, which is right outside Philly. But so yeah, we went to see. It was my first professional soccer match. It was an exciting experience. I caught a T-shirt, which is always fun. But you always feel like you're robbing it from some person behind you, and which always makes you feel guilty. But I gave it to him because it was his birthday. And so I mean, it was just an awesome experience. It was good to see everything live. I have my own opinions sometimes though about professional sports fandoms and how nasty they can be. Which might be a topic someday for this
idolatry
podcast. Yeah, well, it's one of those things. It's like when this is the most important thing in your life, it can make you do some
wacky stuff,
nasty things, or say some nasty things. Like, so yeah, when
my dad got beer poured on him from a New York Islanders game. I think he was at the Rangers stadium, and he got beer poured over him. Crazy.
Yeah. So this idea is that there is a way. I won't go too heavy into it because I don't want to take up too much time. But like, there is a way to support your team and be part of that community and uplift them without degrading the other community, other team. Like, you know, because in the end, you're all like one big community playing the same sport, and you're kind of dependent on each other. You know, it's not a competition unless there's two teams. So you're kind of working together, even though you're playing against each other. Anyway, I just feel like there's way too much time spent against everything else rather than for your team. So, and I think that robs like the players of a little bit. Like, you could be spending this time cheering on your people. Instead, you're like blaming the ref for everything. And that's a whole other thing. My heart goes out to officials of every level, for every sport, for every reason. Because they are never, I don't even understand why people do it. It's like they never get praised. They don't get paid well, but yet they do it. So God bless those men and women. But it was still fun though. It was still a very fun experience, and we had a great time. So glad we were there. What happened at that? I don't remember what else happened that weekend. Well, I mean, I've been doing a lot. I've been going around a lot for my job, even on the weekends. So like I went out to see campus ministry at Dickinson University. So like we have campus ministries even at the non-Catholic schools. Like we try to have a campus ministry presence. So went out to meet with the people with that. Got to meet some of the kids on campus. Went to a youth group that was in Chambersburg. Got to talk to them, give a little witness talk. Which like I gave them the spiel, but it was trying to give them the spiel. It's like, okay, let's have a serious point to this, but not overload it and like be like really heavy, but like, I don't know. So trying to find that balance. But that was really fun. And then like this past week, I went down to like Hanover to go see a young adult group for a Bible study, which was pretty awesome. Went to see a CYO basketball tournament. It happened, and I was there, and it was so got to kind of see that a little bit. So like traveling a lot for work. I went to, I'm trying to think. Went to Scranton, go see some of the gang. Seen multiple movies. Saw Ant-Man by myself. That was like my first time I've ever been to the movies by myself. Which
it's an experience.
It is an experience. It was only me and like 4 other people. And in like a theater that was just like, this is an old theater. Like this is like a probably built in the 80s type of theater. Like,
it's got that mildewy smell.
Yeah, and it's just like the
Best.
really old seats, and it was kind of like there was no like levels. It was just kind of like a slant. It looked like an old auditorium. Like you couldn't have held more than 100 people max, but it was fine. It was good. It was a solid movie. Then I went to see Creed 3 with the gang yesterday. Was also a pretty good movie. So I mean, I've literally been just buzzing around. Have had several doctor's appointments, which has been mixed bag. You know, doctor's always a mixed bag. You always like and hate going to the doctor, but yeah, job's been going really well. It's really stressful. We're in budget season right now. Like we have to prepare budgets, and that's super stressful because I've not been here a full year yet, so I can't. It's like hard to predict all the needs because I haven't experienced everything yet. So I just kind of have to do my best to like throw some numbers out there and like calculate like what we need. So so we're in crunch time. So it's like pretty intense and pretty stressful. But
Just be like, I need 6 figures or I walk.
yeah. Our department needs at least 7 figures. The young people are important. It's like, we need all this.
We need a stadium. We need a complex. We need it.
We need to watch professional soccer games.
We need Matmar every weekend.
We need every Catholic speaker known to man coming every week. And we need a hot tub because everything's better with a hot tub.
That's poignant. Yeah.
Nice jacuzzi.
Yeah, a nice jacuzzi in our office. We have like a cool cutout of Pope Francis that greets people into our office now. He's just like giving them a thumbs up, and so I kind of walk in. So that's exciting, but it's all we got. It's all we can afford. Is a cardboard Pope Francis. But yeah, other than that, just trying to stay busy. I'm trying, and Lent has now begun. So for most people, that's like, oh, it's Lent time. But for me, it's like, yeah, that means we're halfway through Exodus 90. We're on the downslope. But so that's been, I mean, the summary of my past fortnight. So it's been packed. So yeah. What about you guys? How's it been going? How's been your past? I guess for you guys it would be 4 days since
Give or
you last
take, yeah.
recorded. How was your weekend? Let's Joe, how was your weekend?
Oh man, it's been action packed. Friday, my dogs were barking legit because I was up for 13 hours just standing up coaching. We had our conference meet for our kiddos. For kids that were really only swimming basically 3 months total. Some swam for the first time 3 months ago. They dropped a considerable amount of time because for anybody listening, you at the end of the season, you shave your legs, you shave your all different types of orifices and whatnot, those lovely things. And that was
every have to use that word, dude.
The wrong word to use.
Every crevice, every orifice. We're here to make it uncomfortable at Seizing
You just
Valor.
shave what's not covered by the suit, man. Come on.
That's what you think. Anyway, every single kid basically did so incredibly well, and it was a privilege to be witnessing that, especially some of our seniors who were cheated out of COVID and cheated out of conference championships about 4 years ago. So that was lovely to usher that in and be witness to that. Then I hung out with my niece, who eloquently does not call me Uncle Joey. I am now called Unjo.
Unjo?
Unjo.
I love
Every time she went to the bathroom, she specifically, or I went to the bathroom, she was like, "Where's Unjo? Unjo?
Where's Unjo?" So
Yeah.
you're like not Joe now. You've been unjoed.
I've been unjoed. I thought of that too. Yeah, it was such a great time. Saw her swim lessons. And what else did I do? Played at the playground, which was always lovely. I feel like we don't go to the playground as much for obvious reasons as adults, but we ought to.
Yeah.
We yeah, right.
Probably
But
shouldn't as a grown man.
But we should go to the playground more often if it's empty, with friends or whatever. It's a trip down memory lane.
Have you guys ever seen those outdoor gyms?
Oh, I thought you were about to see. Did you ever see an adult like that?
Yeah, I hope not. But yeah, the
yes,
outdoor gyms that
the outdoor
look
gyms.
like,
Yes.
yeah, playground equipment, but you can get swole. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's our playground now.
At the beach. Yeah, that was my weekend. I'm very excited for the next week or so to finally get some free time in future time. Right now, five days from now, I'll be able to see a lot more of the sun, especially when we get that. What is it? Daylight savings time coming up. I can't wait.
Wait, is that happening?
Yeah, on Saturday. It's the final one. The final one.
But we would be going. So we're going into daylight savings time for the last time.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going forward, right?
Yeah. Because technically we are not in daylight savings time right now. So yeah. So we won't go forward again, ever.
Thank goodness.
Something like that.
Crazy.
Thank goodness. I'm like, no, because I want the days to be longer. So this way they'll be perpetually an hour shorter.
I don't like the changes. It ruins my schedule. I'm happy with this.
I like it when the
Yeah,
sun
when you have
sets.
kids, it's the worst thing in the world. So
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that
we'll see.
would make sense. So what about you, Josh? How's it going? I haven't heard from you since you started the new employment.
Yeah, so last week I talked a little bit about that. So it was kind of a crazy week, to be honest. It was a big it was kind of a rocky transition. The job was fine. It was great, just doing orientation Monday, Tuesday. Monday was like a day that it was like all the annoying stuff, like the harassment videos and all that stuff. And then Tuesday was more about like we had a pretty cool instructor that came in and just kind of talked to us about the driving and different things and answered a ton of questions that people had. And it was a lot better the second day. And then I had a shadow day. And then my road test was on Friday, which I passed.
Good.
And yeah, so it was tough because my wife, so Claire was sick for pretty much all week. So she was kind of laid up. So it was just tough to like start a new job and then had to go home. And then like the house was a disaster because she couldn't really do much. But it's all good. The sanctification process of being a husband and father. But yeah, so my weekend was pretty good. My parents, they just moved to Virginia, or they're going to move to Virginia this week. I keep saying that they did, but so Thursday they're moving, and so I wanted to see the house one more time and help them in the last bit. So I drove down on Saturday morning, and took Eli, which was nice. And yeah, we drove down. We had a whole day. We did all kinds of stuff. We drove all over Kingdom Come and did different errands and whatever. And then on Sunday, I went to mass pretty early with Eli, and then helped move and all that stuff. And it was good. Yeah, it was like one of those moments where it was like bittersweet, saying goodbye to the house that you grew up in, and like the.
I was just about to say, have you taken it all in?
I've sort of. I was welling up as I was leaving and saying goodbye to my parents. Because yeah, like that house that they live, I grew up in the most beautiful place, I say like ever. It's on top of this massive hill and the peak of the county. So it was the highest point in the county. So it was literally right on top of the hill. So you see 360 degrees of just miles of, it's the most beautiful view ever. And so for the longest time, you live there, so you take it for granted. But after going to college and getting married, and whenever we would come back, it was like a little sanctuary, like a little oasis, just to kind of get away from everything, and just kind of rest. And it was always very peaceful and beautiful, 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 beautiful. So yeah, I didn't like leaving. It hit me like I'm not going to be here again. So it was, I was welling up and all that. And then
just take like a part of it, like a board or. Maybe some dirt, or I don't know. Just take like a part of your home.
Yeah, well, I had some like childhood stuff there that my parents gave me, like a tote of like trophies and some like stories that I wrote like years ago. I was really into writing in primary school and in middle school, so I had all that stuff. So it was like a whole tote I was going through and was like taking down memory lane, Yeah, and then so drove back late Sunday. I got here at like 10 p.m. or so, and then went to bed and woke up and had a good rest day today before starting my Carrier Academy tomorrow. So I have Tuesday through Friday. I have more training at a place in Huntington, and so it's good. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Good,
cool.
Yeah, that's my life.
Nice.
Lots and lots and lots of change.
All but change once, right? Can be good.
When it rains, it pours.
Yeah, sure. We'll see you all next week when we return for the return of the king.
So what we would like you all to do right now is please subscribe, hit the bell icon, and like this video. We certainly would love that if you're watching on YouTube. Also, if you are currently listening on Spotify, please give us a follow. And give us a follow also on Instagram. We are the handle at Seizing Valor. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, please comment on our videos or post on Instagram. Plus, also, if you feel as if you want to have a little bit more of a private discussion with us, you can email us at seizingvalor. Please, if you subscribe and hit that bell icon, you'll be able to see extra content that we have. Also, on Instagram, you guys will see extra content that we have, but you'll have new videos that are coming up and you'll get notifications for.
Yeah. Give us a comment.
With that be, yeah, please give us a comment. It certainly can help us out.
King, tell us who your favorite character is. I like Shadowfax. It's a cool horse.
Well, I like Bill the Pony.
Bill the Pony? Oh, yes, Bill the Pony.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
See you next week for our episode closing out the series on Return of the King and Healthy Masculinity. Take it away.
The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity for us to be together once again. Thank you for the gift of art, particularly in this case, in media through, whether it be book or movie, for this incredible story, for the gifts of the parable, which in a lot of ways, Lord of the Rings is in that realm, in that field, for stories that reveal deeper truths about you, for your presence in Tolkien's mind and therefore in his characters, and how he's able to fashion your word in different ways for audiences like ourselves, and revealing those deeper truths. Help us to be able to take on the best characteristics that are displayed by the men in these movies, and learn from the not so good characteristics that they may put forth. Help us to be strong. Help us to take initiative in our fight against evil. Help us to hold strong, to ride out, courageously, trusting that you will help us. Help us to treat all other people with love and respect. Help us to develop good, close friendships and bonds with each other. Help us to act when we see injustice. Help us to remember that there will need to be a time to act, and not just to talk about acting. And just help us to really live and embrace the own adventures that you've put in our lives. Our own fellowships, our own adventures, our own rings that we have to destroy, crosses we have to carry. And just help us to, once again, help us to ride out. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 We will see you all for our closing discussion on the Return of the King. See you next week.